Miles Packard. So I think it's a safe bet to say that as consumers, we generally like a lot of the things that we have, whether it's your car or your nutty bars or whatever, your junk food. But the thing is, all of those products are made in something similar to this. They're all made in the factories. So these factories are powered by electricity. That being said, if we run out of electricity, this shuts down, which means you don't get a lot of those products that you like so much. Now, according to, there's a website called Brilliant. It's really similar to Masterclass. You can go in and learn about all kinds of different topics. One of the courses that they have on there is a course on solar energy. And according to their statistics, at our current consumption rate, our fossil fuels will be gone within about 100 years. So that being said, that can mean that people like our grandchildren, generations as close as our grandchildren, could see the effects of gas prices going through the roof, all kinds of things happening like that. So fossil fuels, the two main ones that the United States at least uses are oil, crude oil. We call it petroleum, that's another name for it, and coal. Now coal is used for our traditional power plants. They take it, they crush it up into like a powder, and they inject it into a chamber. When they burn that, it heats up water, and the steam goes through a tube to turn a turbine. And petroleum is used in all kinds of stuff. It can be used for anything, for creating paraffin wax, which is used for a plastic, a really common plastic. It's in nearly all plastic products in the US are made from paraffin wax. And the issue with some of these is that, like coal, it takes thousands and thousands of years under really intense heat and pressure to create just a little bit of coal. The way that they mine coal, they go up to mountaintops, and this is getting into the environmental impact. They go up to mountaintops, they will strip away all the trees and all the plants from the top of these mountains. They will drill down a little bit, and they'll put explosives down in the mountain. So what they do with those explosives, when they go off, they'll blast away a ton of the rock, and then they'll what's left behind are all these coal deposits. So they'll go in there and collect these coal deposits, and they can go and refine them, and then they just turn into coal that you can use to burn. Same thing with the drilling. They set up these oil rigs, and there's just a big drill bit essentially that goes down and hits an oil deposit, and that's all pumped up and shipped off somewhere to be refined. Now the issue with both of these is that some of the environmental impacts when you drill down and when you literally blow a big hole in a mountain is that all the things that you bring to the surface, there's always side effects. You have things like lead. You can actually have traces of radioactive elements like uranium or radium or things like this. Those can be collected through runoff, and like when it rains, the runoff can go and it goes into streams and lakes, and all of these are what the wildlife drink out of. So you can have the wildlife go drink out of a poisoned lake or a poisoned water source and end up dying, and that completely destroys an ecosystem. When you start having large groups of animals that are a crucial part of it die off, it has a huge impact. So that being said, like I said, mining for petroleum goes down, hits petroleum mines, it gets sucked up. Same thing with coal. They blast away all the rock, and what they have left is a bunch of coal deposits they can take and mine. So the environmental impact, like I said, this is a stream. The red that you see here, that's not clay. That's mud with traces of iron and lead and all these metals that go and get into the water supply, and they rust. They rust, and what's left behind is all this corrosion. So when the animals go and they drink out of this stuff, they can end up getting really sick and they can die. Now, that's as far as fossil fuels go. There are other things that we can use, other methods for power generation. There is hydroelectric. So you go to like a river or stream and you set up a big turbine there, and the water rushes by it and turns the turbine to turn a generator. And that's how you get your power. There's wind, which I don't know how many of you have actually like seen a wind turbine, but these things are huge. They can go hundreds of feet in the air, and it's the same thing like a turbine, but they have a propeller essentially. So when the wind goes by, it turns the turbine to generate there. So geothermal energy, on the other hand, they drill super down deep into the earth. They hit pockets of really hot water, or in some cases they can get down to a cave system where it's really hot, really deep in the earth's crust. And all that rising air or rising steam does the same thing that it does in the coal plant. It goes to turn a turbine. And then there's another one, tidal. It's similar to hydroelectric, but what happens is you have these propellers underwater. So when the waves crash up against the shoreline, it'll actually go to turn these turbines. But as you'll see, a lot of these have really big obstacles to overcome. Hydroelectric, that means that if you want to have power generation, you have to be near a stream or a river, something powerful enough to turn a turbine. Even more so with the tidal forces, you need to be near an ocean. Geothermal, it's a really big process because drilling that down deep into the earth is a really costly process, especially if it's hundreds and hundreds of feet down. When the tectonic plates start to shift, the Earth's crust moves around, it can actually destroy a lot of those mines. So they have to have really high maintenance to keep those up. And with wind, you have to put a lot of time and effort into constructing these really big wind towers and wind turbines. And that can be really costly, especially for the blades. If they're spinning that fast, it doesn't look like it, but with the blades being 60 feet long, swinging around, a bird goes into there and it doesn't come out. It comes out as feathers. But so an alternative to this would be solar power. Now, the reason I feel like this is the best alternative is because the sun is out about half the day. Unless you live in a forest or somewhere with really high shrubbery, you're going to have access to solar panels or the sun. And it's a really simple process. What you see here is all it is. I've actually started to set up my own little system at home. But you have the panels. They don't take any kind of maintenance. You just set them up there and it works. It goes into a charge controller, which is just like you dial down how much power you get so it doesn't destroy your batteries. What charge is left out of there goes into the batteries to charge them, and then it goes into an inverter. It sounds like a long process, but it's only like 5 pieces of equipment. The inverter just takes it from, you guys have all heard of AC and DC electricity. Now the solar panels generate DC, and what runs through your outlets in your house is AC. So whenever you plug your phone in, you got this little brick, and that's actually a little inverter, power inverter, because all your devices take DC electric. But from the inverter, it goes in your breaker, that's just in your house. It's just essentially a big switch box, and then that can go to all your different appliances and stuff. Now, the batteries are the thing that is going to determine how long your supply will last. You can have really good solar panels or really small batteries, and you'll only be able to charge your house for a couple hours at night. So batteries are one of the biggest costs there. But some of the really good benefits for this is, who likes going home at night and coming home and seeing that your power's off? The thing is with solar power, if your power's out, it doesn't mean that the 50 people around you's power is off as well. You can have each one of these setups is on top of your house. It's an individual grid. So if your power goes off, you'll know, hey, this is my problem, and you can go out there and easily diagnose it. So each one of these is individual, and it's pretty discreet to set up. There's no loud noises of having a gas generator running. You don't have to run miles and miles of power lines out to different people's houses and diagnose that when it goes down. So there's a lot of benefits to something like this. Now, a lot of these graphics I've found either through Google Images or sources. There's one by Hanita Davis that says, can petroleum be recycled? And it can, but it's a really costly process. They have to take out all the solids from it, all the dirt, particulates. They have to refine out other liquids like water that can be drawn up through the drilling process. And the methods of generating electricity I got from Meta Goldbull, which is from Science Struck. They're a big news article that covers all kinds of new science developments and all kinds of benefits, and specifically power generation. So through using solar power, you can have individual grids that are fairly easy to set up, and they can run all day and all night if you have a big enough battery supply. So now I tell you, this background that I have up here, take that not to be a field of solar panels out in the middle of nowhere. Take that to be the roof of someone's house. They actually have panels that are the size of shingles. So it would look no different than a regular house, and they're actually made by Tesla, the company that makes the cars. And, but if you have this continuing down the other side and every house looks like this, you would no longer need really long power lines from a power plant miles and miles away, and you'd be able to diagnose exactly when your power goes out and where it comes from. So using solar energy, we can have a renewable, clean fuel that you wouldn't have to pay for every month. Generating your own power, you would not need to pay your electricity bill at all. So that sounds pretty nice.